Three, two, one. Go. Good administration saves lives, and what good administration needs are people that can handle administration, not people that have medical expertise. This is a very clear push coming from proposition that opposition needs to respond to well. I'll be proving to you why each of their main pushes don't really fly. First, on this idea that it takes time to re-educate civil servants about medical procedures or important things. Note that they don't actually have to learn about complex medical procedures, nor do they need to learn about the different parts of the brain, nor do they need to know about generally the things like spread of disease or very specific surgical procedures. What they need to know are where doctors need help, what policies need to be implemented, and these are things that can be very easily transmitted by asking doctors what types of things they need, and these civil servants can execute and create solutions for that. Comparatively, it takes a lot more time to re-educate nurses and doctors who don't have prior expertise in administration about all the things you need to do to make a solution. This includes project and management, filing and creating programs and logistics committee, organizing people, knowing how to manage and navigate political environments, knowing how to allocate resources, creating large networks for communication. These are all things that require specialist experience that civil servants have that doctors don't. And in a field where you're talking about the medical licensing board that doesn't cure people but rather handles administrative efforts, the amount of effort and work that will be related to administration is much heavier, and therefore a lot more education is needed for doctors and nurses. And that wasted time that you spend re-educating nurses and doctors to fulfill these rules is a lot of wasted time. That is in the best case of opposition. Sometimes these doctors and nurses simply don't have the prior qualifications to actually handle these jobs in the first place and are simply chosen because they're the best candidate from the job among the field of doctors but aren't necessarily cut out for the job. And then that's when they have to deal with the same harms of incompetency that they want to file against proposition with civil servants, for example, being lazy, etc. The thing is, on our end, the worst case scenario is that civil servants are lazy and don't do their job. On their side, their best case is that these doctors and nurses still have to undergo very, very long times of training that cost thousands or maybe even more people their lives. And even in their best case, they also have to deal with the fact that a lot of doctors and nurses simply won't be cut out to operate on the highest level. So we're willing to tell you that probably lazy civil servants are still probably going to be better and more efficient than re-educated doctors and nurses. But then why are civil servants like to be competent in the first place and unbiased? So they tell you, okay, the state appoints people and therefore it's going to be corrupt, etc., etc. First, that the state, even if it is corrupt, has an incentive to put people or civil servants in positions or civil servants that are likely to fulfill their role well in these positions of power, because the medical industry, for example, is a very crucial industry nationally, and the performance of these industries is crucial for their evaluation of performance in the eyes of the people. So if they want to be re-elected, they have to do well in these industries. Corruption probably happens in less critical industries where it's easy to siphon money without being noticed. But then second, assuming that states are corrupt, they can still levy the same pressure on the medical licensing board on doctors or nurses, for example, who are the head of it. So even if you have doctors and nurses who are quote-unquote incorruptible coming from opposition, it's much, much harder because these are people that don't have experience with dealing with internally corrupt political environments and navigating them, like giving buko pies to people, to politicians, or understanding how to press or push and press on the buttons and levers of politicians to get what you necessarily want. In the case that civil servants that are appointed are good. This means that states that are corrupt can still pressure doctors and nurses into doing corrupt practices anyway, or manipulating elections within medical licensing boards in the favor of doctors or nurses that are likely to be corrupt as well. So we think that it's still likely to be symmetric on opposition end if they really want to push this hard. What we aren't able to win on, however, is this issue of efficiency. And try to argue that doctors are more proximate and they'll listen to like rural nurses on the ground. I don't necessarily see why that's true. If I am a doctor from Manila, why am I more likely to know about the struggles of a doctor in a understaffed local community hospital within Cebu? It just doesn't make sense. You know who is likely able to be better able to coordinate though? A civil servant with large networks of communication who knows how to handle large administrative regions and incorporate everyone's issues in a systematized manner with programs committees and logistics committees. These are the types of things that administrative experience can bring you. But then they tell you, okay, but then also it's even if these civil servants listen to these rural areas, then suddenly it's going to be slower. Note that this response coming from their deputy actually directly knives their case. Because what is it? Do you want rural servants to actually, or do you want rural doctors to have their issues heard or no. But before I move on, I'll just take a POI from opposition. Saber please.
Civil servants really still exist on our end. You don't respond to the idea. They are able to focus on their strengths, such as connections, because they aren't distracted managing a new entire completely.
Yes, and doctors also exist on our end. We think the problem is you have a problem solution mismatch. You see, you aren't distracted handling things, medical things. What exactly are these things that you're seeing on opposition? I think you're talking about administrative efforts because everything that's related to the medical licensing board are administrative efforts. I think opposition largely overestimates actually the role of the medical licensing board because it's not actually like they're allocating supplies or like they're like allocating large packets of medical supplies to people. No, it's an it's an administrative body that applies laws passed directly from the government and just handles things like the medical licensure exam. And these are the types of things that require coordination on the ground to ensure that doctors are able to take these exams without delay, to ensure that all of these processes and all of these thousands of people that apply for these exams are able to have it efficiently, to ensure that trials against malpractice are implemented smoothly. Things that don't require a lot of prior medical knowledge and things that aren't necessarily distracting. I think it's comparatively a lot harder when you have doctors that are leading these administrative roles. But then also, if you can argue that civil servants exist on your end, we can argue that doctors exist on our end, that they pressure civil servants to have those important medical issues addressed, that they are able to input or give advice to these civil servants. And I think civil servants, as people that with intensive medical or like administrative skills and people skills, are likely to listen to these cries for help from doctors. So I think the general broad push here is this is a debate about efficiency, and civil servants comprising the majority of staff of the medical licensing board leads to a more efficient board that is able to save people from malpracticing doctors, that is able to get the right people in the right place, that is able to give people the licenses they deserve without delay, and ensures that the people that actually can help, maybe doctors with medical experience, become medical directors or teachers instead in more crucial roles and doesn't waste their time. We tell you that a lot less doctors are needed in the medical licensing board than opposition thinks, and we're able to save more lives this way. For all of these reasons, very, very proud to propose. I think it's just a clear prop win by this clash. Thank you.